Okay, so in example 2, this is like your other problems. So 51, 55, okay, I guess those two problems. So we have 165, we want to use a half angle formula to determine the exact value of sine, cosine, tangent of these angles. So if you were to, I don't know, just curious, find sine 165, you'd get a decimal that's not exact. So we got to come up with some way where we get the exact value of that decimal. So if we look at our unit circle, 165 is not there, but it kind of gave us a hint. We're using a half angle. So 165 is half of 330, right? So 330 divided by 2 is 165. The way I got 330 is I just doubled 165. So this right here is the same as 330 degrees halved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find sine of 330 degrees over 2. Well, if you have your identities, sine is plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine theta. Well, theta is 330. And cosine of 330 is square root 3 over 2 divided by 2. Okay? Divide by 2 is from my identity. And if you need it, right there. Okay? We're going to leave it plus or minus. So let's take a second and think about where 165 is. 165 is over here in quadrant 2. All students take calculus. All are positive. Sine is positive. Tangent is positive. Cosine is positive. So if I'm doing sine of 165, I know my answer needs to be positive. Okay, that's what I meant when I said in the last video about we need to check the location. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify this. I'm going to times this 2 over 2. That'd give me plus or minus the square root of 2 minus square root 3 over 4, which is the square root of 2 minus square root 3 over square root 4, which is the square root of 2 minus square root 3 over 2. Okay, you might look at that and like, oh, that's not a very pretty answer. These don't have to be pretty. They're just not going to be. Okay, so we said sine in quadrant 2 is positive, so this is positive. So sine of 165 is square root 2 minus square root 3 over 2. And you can plug that in your calculator and make sure it gives you the same answer. Okay, not bad. Let's do cosine. So cosine of 165 is the same thing as cosine of 330 over 2, which we know is plus or minus the square root of 1 plus square root 3 over 2, because cosine at 330 degrees, and again, it's always going to be cosine, because that's what my identity says to use is cosine. So cosine of 330 degrees is square root 3 over 2 divided by 2. And we're going to do this the same way. We're going to times this by 2 over 2. So we get plus or minus square root of 2 plus square root 3 over 4, which is plus or minus the square root of 2 plus square root 3 over 2. So what we need to decide, is it positive or negative? So we're doing cosine of 165. So again, we're in quadrant 2 for cosine. Sine is the only thing that's positive. So this tells me that it should be negative square root 2 plus square root 3 over 2. Okay, so far so good. When we get to tangent, tangent is tricky. I'm not going to lie. Tangent is always just got to be, you know, that harder problem. It's just that way. It's like that sibling, that one sibling that just always makes things a little frustrating. But we can still handle them because we love them. And if you don't love tangent yet, I would learn to love it because it's not going away. Okay, so we get plus or minus the square root of 1 minus square root 3 over 2 over 1 plus square root 3 over 2. Okay, so we have it set up. Sorry, I gotta make sure I tell you guys right on this one. And I worked it out several different places because, as I said, it's one of those frustrating ones. Okay,